what's your how's it hanging? How's it happen? You guys know this is Kevin from the Chord Progression Podcast, sponsored by Dark Fusion Systems, the best for your custom computing needs, whether you're building a gaming PC, streaming PC, music, creative, whatever you need, Dark Fusion Systems will build the perfect PC for you. Get $100 off your entire bill. Use code CPPOD at checkout, darkfusionsystems.com. Thank you guys for checking us out. Thank you guys for checking out the sponsor. Description of the podcast below. Now, feature presentation, we have Tanis from the band Lives Lost in the podcast. And we talking deep about the kind of music they make, the state of what's going on in the scene, and why people are getting into much more creative music, especially in the rock and metal space, and screaming. Customarily, tastefully placed. Good stuff. You guys ready? Let's go! Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, listeners of the Chord Progression Podcast. You know us, we like to dive into all these different types of genres, whether it's rock, metal, heavy metal, metalcore, post-hardcore. Did I say post-hardcore? Yeah, because that's exactly where we're going right now. Coming away from Hershey, Pennsylvania, the land of chocolate, this post-hardcore band, if you like a mix of stuff like Caskets, good friends of ours, The Used, and even Chevelle, oh yeah, trust me on that one, you're going to like this band. So please welcome Tanis from the band Lives Lost to the podcast. So Tanis, welcome to the Chord Progression Podcast.
Thank you for having me, Kevin. Super stoked to be here today.
Dude, super stoked to have you on, listen to your music, really taking a deep dive into it. And there's just a lot of differences and a lot of intricacies that, I've picked up from other bands, like we even put in their Caskets, The Used, even Chevelle, that I thought, never really thought that those would work in this kind of context. But however the hell you mix your music and however the hell you put this stuff together, damn, like it's good stuff.
I appreciate that. I think I've been writing songs for, 10 to 15 years, somewhere in that range now. Got my first guitar at like 10 and kind of been writing ever since. And that was 17 years ago. I don't think I really started writing my own songs until I was like 12, 13. So I'm going to say, been a while, and I think I kind of found a formula that works for me when I write, and Lives Lost is kind of the spiritual successor for my metalcore band, Lasciate. And we couldn't agree where we wanted to take our sound. And I always wanted like more of a rock edge, but with lots of post-hardcore and metalcore elements. And I think I've finally kind of started to pull that off, even sprinkling in some pop punk from time to time,
I mean, you have to do stuff like that, especially if that's what you love and that's what you really want to write about. Of course, understanding, if you're a metalcore band and you have other guys in the band that's like, okay, you have a sound, you only want to stick with a certain sound. If you're going to want to try and break out from that and try and expand on that, and then those creative differences clash. I mean, we see bands go their separate ways all the time, amicably, based on just the fact that other guys want to do other things. Other influences might come into play and you just want to try something different. It happens all the time. And sometimes to great success on both ends. And seeing where you're coming from as well, you still enjoy some of the heaviness in there. You still enjoy some of that manic part of there. But you also, want that rock edge. You just want to have a little bit more of that post-hardcore feel to it. Even like you said, sprinkle some pop punkness in there. But it's all based on the fact that that's what you genuinely connect with, what you genuinely like. And that's going to come across heavily in the music when you create it.
I agree with that. And, I really couldn't have said it better myself. I think I like to be a combination of genres, and I like to write music that way because I find the average listener doesn't really just want, they don't just want rock. They want something new, so why would we create the same thing that everybody else has created over the years and just repackage it with our name? We want to have bands. We have a lot of bands that we like. We as a band, we're multifaceted. I wish Aaron and Alan were here today. They had prior engagements, but, Aaron really loves like pop music and even like some progressive, metal, and his favorite artists are like the Goo Goo Dolls and John Mayer and the Smiths, so I think you hear a little bit of that in the lead guitar playing. And Alan's favorite bands are like, I think, Toto and the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and we all three love Avenged Sevenfold. That's like a common bond we share, but we all have like these jarringly different influences. I probably listen to the most music out of everybody. I like rap, I like pop, I like R&B, I like lots of progressive metal, I like metalcore, post-hardcore, even some melodic hardcore. I listen to it all. My playlist can range from like, Metallica to the Black Dahlia Murder over to Usher, and then, back to like 90s West Coast hip hop like NWA and Ice Cube, I really just like it all.
Oh, I totally understand. Even for me, like there's times in the gym where I'm listening to playlists and it'll go from, listening to something like a little bit of heavier pop punk styles like Belmont. Next thing you know, I'm listening to Baba Yaga by Slaughter to Prevail just because that's what feels right.
Yeah, I love that. I love Slaughter to Prevail too. Really cool band. Never met those guys, but Alex Terrible is an insane vocalist for sure.
Oh God, anytime that dude's on stage and, they're going to do Demolition or something, when you get to the breakdown, just ends up quieting everybody and just screams it out without any mic. And you can clearly hear him from the entire venue. Like, you can't really beat that.
No, that's next level.
It is next level. But again, coming from where you guys have all these different influences, and when all those different influences come together in a like kind of like that melting pot, this is what you get. You get something that has more of this fresh dynamic flow with these sprinkles of, pieces that we remember throughout it. But what you said really stuck out to me was, when people are listening to music, they don't want the same, maybe they like the same genre, maybe they want to stick to just one style, but they just don't want the same old stuff that we'd consistently seen over the course of time. Of course, there's a lot of different music that was happening, I'll say in the 2010s, like, between, I'll say 2008, 2019, but really we didn't see a full evolution of a lot of things because of how many people were saying rock is dead, all this other stuff. So a lot of the bands that were young, that should be really popular, that were trying these different things, were not getting that, that view. They weren't getting that exposure. But since the pandemic happened, just the way that things had gone with TikTok, with the internet, with Spotify, with streaming, look at the number of bands that have exploded within rock and metal that are doing things completely different, and people are attracting to it because the sound is different and it's something that they can relate to and really get behind. 2021, we had Spirit Box really take off. 2022, we had Bad Omens and Lorna Shore. And 2023, come on, Sleep Token, like.
Yep. And these are bands that have been at it for a hot second, in the very least. I mean, Bad Omens, I think they've been a band like almost a decade now, if I remember correctly. I think they had an album like my sophomore year of college. So that would have been like 2017. I think.
Their first album came out in 2016.
Yeah. So I knew. And it was really good, but I think they got kind of lost because rock and metal were dead, like there just wasn't a lot of interest in it. I feel like that time period, I graduated from high school. Well, I didn't graduate. That's a long story. I have a diploma or a GED, I mean. But in 2015, that's when I would have and did subsequently leave high school for college. And I feel like at that point in time, the talk of the town was like rap and probably mainstream pop, and I can't think of a lot of like insane metal releases that year, off the top of my head.
No, because like the only like big release I can think of from that year were Beartooth released Aggressive, A Day to Remember.
Yeah, that's huge.
A Day to Remember came out with Bad Vibrations, like
even then, like those. I remember Bad Vibrations. Paranoia was on 105.7 The X, which is our local rock station, who was gracious enough to have us on recently. We really appreciate that. But it was like not when the song first came out. It was like maybe a year after it came out. Kind of crazy to think about. Like, I just feel like we lost a year of really great music, and it just wasn't. I don't know if it was because everybody was lagging with marketing or the mainstream media consumption just wasn't ready for that metal element that a lot of these bands had. But I feel like for a hot second, metal was like the ugly stepchild of everything. I feel like it's coming back in a big way. It's crazy. You log on to TikTok now, it's like you see bands that were huge 30, 40 years ago, and they're getting huge again on TikTok, like a good example of that would be Deftones, Around the Fur came out in what, 98?
I think so.
They're 2000, somewhere in there. And my own summer shove it is like all over TikTok right now. Like, it's crazy. Like, just knowing that this new media consumption has brought so many bands into the forefront again, and I feel like Deftones was already huge, Korn was already huge, but these bands have grown exponentially because somebody made a TikTok with their music in it,
Well, I think there's a couple of different things behind it too. It's, like with music can be very similar to like fashion where it's, things will go out of style, but things will come back in. I mean, we
Yeah.
saw that, we always see that stuff over time happen. And then you go back to like the mid 2010s, because that's when I was in college as well. I graduated at the end
Mhm.
of 2016. So a lot of the stuff that was going on around there, anything that was popular was anything that was, much more in the pop style of things, or especially hip hop and rap. And again, that was just what
Yeah.
was popular. But when you think about anything that was going on in rock and metal at that time, especially when it came to just pop culture in that aspect, things were not really very existent in that. Sure, we got some great music that's in there. I'm not going to discount any of the great music that came out, but there was a lot of things that were very similar, or a lot of things that
Yeah.
were not just like going against the grain or trying something completely different. And I think maybe a reason behind that was because of how many people were saying rock is dead, or just we're not putting any pressure, like anything on there.
Yep.
So any band that was trying to get anything going, they had to potentially cater to that old classic sound. But then, you start to see things start to change, 2017, 2018, Bring Me the Horizon starts getting a lot bigger once again, outside of just, the scene after Sempiternal release in 2013. You start to see Beartooth pick up. You see what's going on with Architects with the Doomsday riff. Ice Nine Kills finds that niche with the horror style. Then
Yep.
Motionless in White with the whole gothic metalcore thing starts to gain a little more traction. Then the pandemic hits, and then people again are dying for something new, and there are these other bands that are just picking up on it and really starting to gain traction. But then the bands, like you said, Deftones, I'll even throw Limp Bizkit in there, gained a lot
Yeah,
more
Limp Bizkit.
popularity once again in the 2020s because of TikTok, because people had been craving for something new, and a younger generation had been craving for something like that. So now they're picking up on some of the older things that maybe were popular or weren't as popular as they could have been
Yep.
given the time frame, but now they are, just based on the fact that they have a brand new life and there's more exposure on them, because people that are within more of that pop culture sense are able to take a look at that.
No, 100%. That's 100% what happened. It's kind of crazy because I feel like the pandemic kind of robbed, a year of most
Mhm.
bands' lives, but also it kind of reinvigorated some,
Oh yeah. Oh God, yeah.
like in a big way, in a big way. And I feel like, Bring Me the Horizon has and will always be huge. But I remember during that time period, I saw way more of them on social media than ever, probably.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of bands around social media, especially during like the pandemic. I remember Falling in Reverse, Ryan Recky was all over the place. You couldn't get away from
Yeah,
him.
he was doing Twitch, I think, too, right?
Twitch, he was doing Twitch.
Yeah.
He was reacting to people reacting to his music, and it was something to watch. Like, it was something cool because now you're seeing him actually connect with people, whether he was
Yep.
giving people positive or negative reviews of his own music. It was
Yeah.
kind of funny. But what ended up happening was how I looked at it too, and I think you could probably test, especially from your songwriting perspective. When the pandemic hit, yeah, we lost a year and a half of some bands. But when it came to the reinvigorated side, it was a time where bands could experiment with new things, try new things, and there
'Cause we
was
were all
no
home.
you were all home, and there was no pressure about like, okay, this has to hit because we're going out on tour and we need that new hit and we need people to get behind it. There was this period of time where bands could just absolutely try new things, experiment with new styles, create something that they had always wanted to and now had the time to try it. And look at what's happened.
Yep. I big agree with that. It's kind of insane to think about. And Lives Lost is COVID banned. La Chiate was still in full swing in 2019. And 2020 came around and it just killed us pretty dead in the water. We were already disagreeing, but we were working on new music and we all just started to like realize we all wanted different things. The majority of the band, Aaron, also my lead guitar player for Lives Lost, was in La Chiate.
Okay.
And he and I wanted a more like commercial sound, more clean melodies and stuff like that. And every single other person in the band, they wanted more metalcore. They wanted me screaming on every track for the majority of the track, and just like I wasn't into that. I love screaming. I love performing my songs with screaming in them, but I really have always loved singing. Like my wife gets even mad at me sometimes, not actually, but we'll be in public and I'll be like singing whatever's on the radio and she's like, "Oh, you're so embarrassing." Like I love singing, and I think most people probably prefer melody over a good scream, I would think. I still like to integrate that into the music. This new track that we're working on right now, it's called Numb the Pain. and it has like a 30-second just heavy scream section, you know? Because
I
I
mean,
like that still, but I like to use it more sparingly, you know?
yeah, kind of. I think about it in a similar aspect of we use Linkin Park in this aspect because think about all the
I
times
love
where,
Linkin Park.
where we knew what Chester could do with those vocals. We knew those screams. We knew the power behind it. Just listen to
Yep.
Give It Up with the 17-second straight scream that who the hell knows how someone can do something like that. But it is true that people tend to, like, as a general rule, people tend to prefer melodies over screaming. I'm talking about the general population of humans in the world. Of course, a lot of us metalheads love the screaming and stuff because of the energy, because of the manicness that it provides. But it's that
Yep.
if for what you're trying to do here, when you're trying to combine the two, it's I think of Linkin Park in this aspect because when Linkin Park would use that and Chester would use those screams, especially some of the heavier stuff, it was always based around conveying that certain emotion of either it's pain, agony, anguish, just aggressive, whatever you need it to come across as. That's what it was used for. So it's used technically as another instrument to convey emotion, not as fully as, like trying to get the words across or trying to have people understand the story or the message that the song is having. You're trying to get them to understand the emotion and the energy and the intensity that's behind it with some of those screams. So when you tastefully put them in there, what you're
100%.
trying to do, holy shit, does it work?
Yeah, dude, I appreciate you saying that. I think like one of my absolute all-time favorite bands is Chevelle. I love
Mm-hmm.
Chevelle. I love Avenged Sevenfold. I love Metallica. Obviously Metallica doesn't really scream. Um, but I think Chevelle has always done that so tastefully. Like you look at their huge hit, The Red, and he's doing that loud than or quiet than loud vocal delivery. He's like, you say freak when you're singled out, and he's like building the song. And
Yeah.
then right as he goes into the chorus, he goes, Sly, like it's this big
Mhm.
scream into this really like almost chill chorus. But the way that vocal is done and where it is at the song and it preps the chorus, it's just chef's kiss. And I think that's just something so special when you can like say, okay, I like screams, like I could layer them here,
Mhm.
but what if I just had it as this really integral part of the song every time it came back around? It makes that next part so much more integral. And people will cling to that scream. They'll love that scream. But what you're doing there is you're preparing your big moment with a slightly less big moment because it's not melodic, you know?
Oh
And I
God,
just
yeah.
think when that's tastefully done, it's just amazing. I say that as a dude that likes music that has like a lot of screams. Our metalcore band has played with Suicide Silence, Black Dahlia Murder, actually Ice Nine Kills and August Burns Red back in the day, and I think that I love that aggressive style vocals. I love that mania, that manicness that you've been talking about. But like when a melody hits in a song, I cling to that so hard.
Oh,
I'm not a
absolutely.
huge We Came as Romans guy, but what's that song? It's like To Plant a Seed.
Yeah.
Um, and that chorus hook comes around. All the rest of the screams are awesome and the riffs are awesome, but that chorus comes around, and I remember hearing that and being like, "Man, I don't even like this band, but I like this." And I would say now I enjoy We Came as Romans a decent bit. But when I first like that type of metalcore just didn't speak to
Mm-hmm.
me when they first came out. Like I've grown to enjoy stuff like that. But at that point in my life, when they first started coming out and being big, like 2012, I guess, right? Is that when they're
I mean, I think To Plant a Seed dropped in 2009, so that was when they first started getting
okay?
up. But then it was like,
Yeah,
Understand We Became Come was like 2011, Trace Back Roots was 2013. If you can't tell, like We Came as Romans, because there's a big giant banner that's behind me,
yeah,
and then
I
there's
saw
also a
that.
tour
That's why I
poster
used
right
them
here
as an
too.
example. I can tell you love them. I think in 2009, how old was I? I was like 12 in 2009 or 13, 12 or 13, 13. And at that point in my life, I think I was just getting introduced to like the emo screamo
Mhm.
stuff. So like I think my friend's older brother introduced me to Silverstein and Bullet for My Valentine and a couple bands like that. And I loved Bullet right away because my favorite band growing up was Metallica. I loved Metallica. My dad's a huge Metallica fan, so I love Metallica, like Pantera, stuff like that I grew up on. And then when I got introduced that screamo, emo rock, type stuff, that Silverstein, you know, um, Newfound Glory, I guess they had a little bit of yelling, A Day to Remember. Like those are my entries to really heavy stuff. I guess my dad likes Slipknot too, so that's heavy, but it's different.
Yeah.
And I think not until, middle school, maybe even high school, then I had a bunch of friends that really loved metalcore. And I found Atreyu some point in that journey. I think X's and O's came out in 2011, I think. And that song was awesome. And I was like, damn, this is like really heavy rock, but with screams. I love this. And that kind of opened my horizon to stuff. So by the time like 2012, 2013 came around, I got into the whole like Warped Tour scene, the metalcore, and not as much as a lot of my friends. And then I went to Warped Tour in 2015 or 2015 or 2016. And I saw Motionless in White and like Wage War and Ice Nine Kills, like all on that Monster Energy stage, and I was hooked. As a 18-year-old kid. That was when I got into metalcore. I started my metalcore band, and yeah, nothing was ever the same because up to that point, like I said, I love pop punk and like your dad metal,
Yeah.
So that was just a whole new world for me. And I'm always kind of been like a late to the party guy. I'm not like early on anything. I kind of, when I find a new thing, it's like on my own terms, or
Yeah.
because I have like a really close friend that was like, oh, you gotta check this out.
I'll say, don't worry, dude. I'm always late to the party on some of this stuff too. I didn't get into all this stuff, like really start to understand like the unclean screams and how much they could actually mean to a song until 2018. I was 22 years old at this point because I was always, when I was younger, I was always listening. Rise Against is still my favorite band of all time. That'll never change.
I love Rise Against.
But I was always listening to like Hollywood Undead, Disturbed, Papa Roach, 3 Days Grace, Chevelle, even that kind. But and Linkin Park. Linkin Park was kind of like the gateway because it's like I could see where it would come from. It wasn't until I listened to the Holy Hell album from Architects that I finally understood it, and then it came to grow further and further. But when you're talking about really bringing some of those like all that cleanliness in there and really bringing it in there and having those screams tastefully put in there. I mean, I'll think of We Came as Romans in that aspect, but nothing from the Darkbloom album, specifically because there is no Kyle Pavone. It's when Kyle was with the band and still alive. It's when they were using him and you had the unclean screams from Dave and the clean scream and the clean singing from Kyle, just the massive contrast that was able to pull out with. It's the melodies that Kyle was able to put in there that really brought a further connection to it. And it took me, I knew I wanted to listen to We Came as Romans, man. I love the name, but I'm like, I just cannot find a song that's like that grasping point song for me to get into. All of a sudden I listen to Wasted Age and I'm like, this is it. Like, this is it. Yeah. The heavy screams, the manic pacing, and then Kyle's vocals in the chorus. Just now that is like, when I think about the mixture between the two, it is perfect. But when you brought up Chevelle with those like tasteful screams in there, it's when you have those little moments in there. They differentiate so heavily in the song. They differentiate it and they take it to new heights. But there's such a grasping point because they are so unique, but they are needed in that to continue to push the song forward, like with, Chevelle with the Red or the end of I Get It as well. Just that's kind of one that was going in my head.
Yeah, 100%. And I love stuff like that, I guess another place where I started finding like heavier music was your like 2000s, 2010s sports game soundtrack. The first time I heard Every Time I Die was on NHL 2013 or 2014. Maybe it was even earlier than that. El Dorado was a featured song on it. And that song's awesome. Definitely not your typical Every Time I Die song, but I heard that and I was hooked, So I think video games, like I said, being involved in that scene, Warped Tour, it all helped. Because, another part of what I think makes heavy music so much specialer, oh my gosh,
yes.
So much more special than, pop music or rap music is the community around it, like there is truly in heavy music this sense of community and the sense of togetherness, you know. I think sometimes there's gatekeepers or whatever, but in general, the metal community, the hard rock community, the metalcore community, hardcore community, we all look out for each other, you know? And I
Yeah.
think that sense of community is so special.
Say, I was going to agree with you on that. And of course, different genres are going to have their different, communities as well. And I was thinking about, I'll use three as an example. I'll use rock and metal community, I'll use rap, and I'll use country. When it comes to rock and metal, we definitely have more gatekeepers in there than the other two do. But just kind of what I've seen, it's, of course, everyone's going to have some sort of sense of community, but it seems like rock and metal, once like people actually get accustomed to it, and you start worrying less about the gatekeepers and more just about the music and just about what makes you happy, you find so many other people there that are just there because they love the music. You connect with so many other people from so many different walks of life, and it's all based on the fact that you listen to this music and there is something that it connects to you in such a positive way that not a lot of people are going to be able to fully understand, especially when it's the heavier stuff, when it is, more metalcore, when it's more hardcore, when it's deathcore, when it's something that is just straight heavy thrash, whatever it might be. There is so much more power in there to have to really understand. And when people really connect on that, you could be, you could be a rich investment banker, or you could be working at McDonald's. It doesn't matter what you're doing in that moment. What matters is if you're at the show and if you guys are enjoying the music in some sort of positive way, because you could be hitting each other in the pit and have the most amount of fun possible. And just there is that sense of community. I mean, what's the number one rule in the pit, man? Someone gets knocked down, you pick their ass right back up.
Yes, 100%. And again, I think that speaks to the community,
It's like if that's the golden rule of your community, if someone falls down, you pick them back up. I mean, you're doing something. You're in a good place. Of course, like any community, there's always going to be people in there that are going to be negative, that are not going to be the best for the community. It's going to happen no matter what community you're a part of, whether it's music, whether it's life, doesn't matter. But for the majority of it, especially for the majority that I've seen, man, it's been for mostly the positive.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%, and I think that full circle back to, why I kind of feel like I ended up in here. It's that sense of community,
So exactly
and maybe it's alternative music as a whole, maybe not even just heavy music, alternative music, not quite the mainstream stuff.
Yeah, I'll say just because, you can connect with friends, connect with other people. It's just a place where, you probably felt embraced the most and understood at the same time, where people weren't as judging you for certain aspects of, your appearance or how much money you made. All that mattered was the fact that you were there.
100%. 100%. I think that's so special. We have a Discord chat with 20 of our fans right now. It's growing, it's still smaller, but just knowing that our music is touching people in a way that they feel connected to us on a deeper level, I think that's so special. Building a community within your music is a wonderful thing. I think, I think maybe there's people that are like, I didn't get into music to have a fan club or whatever, but I think they're not just, for me anyway, fans, they're part of my family, if you will, and they're friends that, I think that keeps building full circle on the community thing. It's like, I think music should be a community. It should be like a safe place to make friends and to be able to trust one another, and if music continues to be like a community and a safe space for people of all walks of life, it'll continue to grow and be something really special.
Oh, got it. If it continues that way, it's going to be just due to the fact that you think about all the different things we see in pop culture, all the different things we see in media, all the different people that we try and connect with. There's so many things that are happening that are trying to divide people into different groups, or to, separate people based on, your economic standpoint, your political ideology, your faith, just how you were born, whatever it might be. There are so many things and so many people that are trying to divide for personal gain, where when it comes to music, that's a place where we can all come together no matter who you are. And it just has such a positive impact on it. If that's going to be that one beacon where people can go to for positivity, then people that want to have that feeling are going to be driven to it, are going to be more connected to it. And what's going to happen in the end? One, we're going to see the bands that are already established continue to grow because their music is already out there. Two, we're going to see new bands pop up because people are going to be going to shows more because they want to be a part of that community and see more of their friends and get more of that positivity on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. Third, we're going to see those people joining the scene get inspired by the music to create their own new music and to push the genres forward even more as the years go by.
100%. And I love that. I love to see that. I feel like COVID really detached everybody from their community. And that's part of the allure of, rock, metal, alternative music,
Dude, I'm never going to forget that first time I jumped into a mosh pit post-COVID. I was waiting for it. I honestly don't even remember what band was playing when I first jumped in there. All I remember was I was in the West Chicago Social Club for Victims' album release show for their album they put out during COVID. And everyone was hitting each other left and right, but no one cared about anything else except the fact that we were back to doing what we absolutely enjoyed doing. And we got so much positivity off of it.
No, 100%. I think that's wonderful.
It absolutely is, man.
Just post-COVID, we played one of the first shows back from COVID, and people were in our area anyway, and people were maybe a little apprehensive, to be there and be moshing. But I think, a couple months fast forward, everybody was back to the full swing of things, we hadn't missed a show.
Yeah, and it still kind of is that way too, where people are going to still as many shows as possible, especially if they're a part of the scene, just because we still remember what it was like during 2020 and early 2021 when there were no shows. We had no idea when these shows were going to come back, and we were dying for this. I mean, I try and hit 50 every single year. I've got a buddy who, I swear to God, he is going to shows in the month of May. It's 25 out of the 31 days.
Wow. That's crazy. We have a couple people in our chat that are like that too. We got Tristan. He's a fan, super wholesome, nice dude. And Chase, also a fan. I think even our fan Sid, they're out at a show a couple times a month at the very least, bare minimum. But I know in May, there's a lot of bands on tour. And I think Tristan told me he has 21 shows or 20 shows in May. Crazy.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm up at 15. I think I'm at 15 for May right now. We'll see how many I get to, but we'll see. But 15 is still a good number. A show every other day.
That's a great number. That's a show, every other day, right?
Every other day. And I'll say, hopefully for your fans, though, especially during that month of May, with 21 shows, hopefully you're a part of that 21 or are going to be number 22 at some point.
We are part of that 21, I think. We have a show with, I feel like such a jerk. I really enjoy this band, and I am pretty consistently forgetting their name. I know Reign of Z, and the other band's Dead something. They're from, I think, Michigan. They're really awesome, and I'm really blanking. Hopefully this doesn't drop me out.
I don't think it will. Otherwise, I'm already going on. I'm going to try and find whoever I can and just say it myself if I beat you to it.
Let's see. And I don't know why I keep blanking on them because like I said, Divide the Fall. There we go.
Oh, no, freaking ways. Divide the Fall?
Yeah, Divide the Fall. They're on the Death of Me tour, which really cool band. I was listening to their music right after we got offered the show, and I was like, yes, sign me up. Yes, absolutely. No question. Sick band. Reign of Z, also sick band. Really a lot of great, smaller regional bands right now that are just killing the game, Yeah.
See, now I like the fact that you put Divide the Fall in there, especially as the show that you're going out and playing in that one, just because when we were talking earlier, about putting the screams in there tastefully. Divide the Fall is another band that does that perfectly. Where
100%.
You're not going to hear them scream very much, but when it's in there, it's going to be a point where it's going to be impactful, tasteful, and going to drive the point of the song home more so than you possibly could imagine if you would have gone a different route.
I agree with that immensely. They're definitely a band that I immediately think of when I think Tasteful screams,
Oh, absolutely. Because even when I was listening through your music, with Champagne, especially in the bridge and that breakdown that you put in there, it the screams that you added in there, I was waiting for something like that. But when you added it in there, it I looked at it as Clean and the accident Uncleans. They kind of really vented the frustrations of the first half of the song. But in the second half with that more Chevelle-like pattern, laying out a lot of the emotional pain and anguish the song had to create the overall feel that you really wanted to get through to kind of just differentiate between both parts of the song. Again, I looked at it and I thought, this was really well done. This is what Tasteful needs. This is what we're looking for.
100%, and I opted to do like an Ollie Sykes, Sam Carter type yell sing thing.
Yeah.
As the main vocal there in Champagne's breakdown part. But I think without the screams there, it wouldn't be as good. I think that layer really just that hits it.
Oh, it's that accent layer that really hits it too, because it adds more of that emotion to a different capacity. Because, when we're humans, like 90% of what we're saying is not the words that come out of our mouth. It's the body language and the tone. And the tone is such a huge piece of it as well. So when you're doing that, Ali's like Sam Carter, like sing scream style, you're going to come across with a certain emotion, but it's not going to, especially if it's a cleaner side of it, it's not going to have more of that raw sound that unclean focus is going to have. So when you have that layer on the bottom of it with those unclean vocals, now you're bringing forward a completely different emotion because you have two different tones that are working together at the exact same time to show off a little more of that venting, a little more of the pain anguish that's coming through there, because we are humans. We're not just going to feel one thing and that's it. We're not going to, we're going to feel this at this point in time. Now we're going to put it away. We're going to feel this. Emotions are constantly mixing all over the place. You can be anxious and depressed at the same time. You can be angry and happy at the same time. Like, I want to fun punch somebody. Yeah.
Yeah, which is exactly what easycore is, fun punch somebody.
That's no wonder why A Day to Remember has so many people showing up at their shows and all the mosh pits that happen there. Or like Chunk, no Captain Chunk. I'll throw Belmont in there too.
I have not heard that band name forever. And when I do, I'm instantly teleported back to like 2016,
Oh, God. This was last year because I remember interviewing Bert back in 2021 when they released their last album. It was like right beforehand, too. And then last year, I was up north in the state of Wisconsin. I was at my aunt and uncle's house right around one of the jet skis, and they had like Bluetooth speakers in them. I'm like, I need something great to ride around to that's fun, perfect for summer, but also needs to be heavy as all hell. I'm like, we're mixing A Day to Remember, Beartooth, and Chunk No Captain Chunk in here.
I love that. And definitely Beartooth is a band that has grown so much. It's crazy. That new album has so many like positive vibe undertones and even overtones. And I love that. I love like the positivity happening in metal right now. It contrasts the, more heartbreaky songs, the Bad Omens stuff, which is awesome. I love Bad Omens, but their songs are definitely like similar to ours where it's like, it's really serious subject material. Like, pain, loss, betrayal, heartbreak, whatever. And Caleb's over here in Beartooth singing about loving himself finally. And that's so absolutely freaking awesome. Just wonderful.
Yeah, for me personally, I'm like with Beartooth, I'm like, dude, Caleb, I'm happy that you're happy. I don't want you to change any bit of that. As much as I would love for the songs to still be happy, but also have that like aggressive bite to them like all the other ones used to have.
Yeah.
You know what? If we're gonna get much more of Beartooth and see Beartooth continue to grow with Caleb happy, you know what? Let's let that keep rolling. If I want to listen to the heavier stuff, I can still go back and listen to Disgusting and Disease.
Exactly.
And just have fun with it in that aspect. However, it is fantastic that, we are still seeing bands that are going to go and broach those serious subjects and get a little bit more deep with them. Like we saw with Architects, like we've seen with Bad Omens, Spirit Box gets into them as well. But then we're also having the bands that are just, kind of out there having fun with it at the exact same time. We're seeing that prevalence. We're seeing Beartooth being incredibly happy. Fuck, we're seeing Electric Callboy just not taking themselves seriously while taking the music seriously. And look at what's happening. People are driving that positivity. When A Day to Remember puts out their fun shit, like everyone's going crazy to it. People still love it because now we're getting that mix between positive and emotionally heavy where we can bounce between, and we're not so stuck in one side or the other. Because if we were stuck in the negative like we had been, then, we're not really seeing much of that positivity coming through. But if we're seeing more of that positivity just come through and we're not even paying attention to like some of the more serious stuff, then that balance is shifted, and then metal doesn't have that seriousness to it that it possibly has. If you have that perfect balance between having fun and being serious, now we got bands that are going to be going all over the place, and we can have tours where, like, I know with Electric Callboy coming over in May for the 2 Danny Wimmers Presents festivals and doing a couple of shows in between. They're bringing Barry Tomorrow with them. So Barry Tomorrow is going to be heavy, but it's going to be more serious. Then here comes Electric Callboy. So we're going to be going from hitting each other being serious to hitting each other yelling, hypa, hypa, you're pretty and I like you.
I love that. Yeah, Electric Callboy is they're a band that I haven't gotten into a lot, but it's fun. It's fun. Like the stuff I've heard, it's just like so fun. It's like early Attack, Stickly. It's like heavy, but it doesn't take itself seriously,
You got to go see Electric Callboy live if you haven't. That will change your whole entire perspective on it, because that is just, there's like, I don't like a lot of their music, but I love all the fun stuff. And it's just, you know what? When you see that live, it is a whole different animal.
Yeah.
But for the better.
My go-to like fun band is Don Broco. I love Don Broco. I feel like, they take themselves seriously, but not really, like they've written some more serious songs. Automatic came out, like I said, pivotal time for me in music where I was really like discovering a crap ton of new bands. So like 2016, 2017, 2018. And, they're just upbeat, like party, alternative rock metal. I love that. I didn't really listen to their new album because I didn't like that single. I probably should go and listen to it. But as far as like happy, like rock metal goes, I love them. I always loved August Burns' Red slogan being, angry music for happy people. And obviously they're a Lancaster band. We're in Hershey. They're right up the road. Very nice humans that, like I said, our metalcore band was fortunate enough to play with at one point in time. I do like that. I like the mix, like you were saying, if we can find the good, 50-50 balance. I like that, I think I really enjoy, a positive, uplifting metal song just as much as a heavy one, but it's different moods for different times, But if you can hear your favorite vocalist do a happy song and a sad song, that's sick. And I think metal vocalists right now, we're doing a really good job of doing that.
Oh, yeah, because again, it's just the freedom of expression, the freedom to feel like you can do this stuff, due to the fact that there are bands out there that are exploring these different varieties, and we're seeing the fact that people are open to experimentation, finally. I mean, look at, again, I'll use Bad Omens as an example, because we listened to Bad Omens' first album, it is nowhere near what The Death of Peace of Mind was. You listen to the second album, and you see that mix starting to really happen, but you still get stuff like Dethrone in there, where it's going to be absolutely brutally heavy, and going to be a lot of fun to be in the pit. Then you go into Death of Peace of Mind. Now it's much more experimental. It has much more of this different flow to it, which is, for me initially, I'm like, this isn't really my thing for Bad Omens, but I have to admit this is artistically brilliant. And that's where, you're starting to see more bands start to come through and really try these different things. Sleep Token trying everything they're doing. Lorna Shore going cinematic deathcore, theatrical style, and how heavy it just hits. Ice Nine Kills still going full in on the horror stuff, just having fun with it, trying all these different aspects. Honestly, look, who would have thought Knocked Loose would be as big as they are?
That's crazy to me.
Who would have thought that?
I saw them at Warped Tour, I think in 2017 or 2018. And I was like, man, this band, there was a crap ton of people there to see them. I was like, wow, they really have a lot of fans. And I had not really listened to them prior to that. And he started doing vocals. And I was like, I'm not into this. But like now, as I've grown to enjoy more and more vocal styles, like I get it. Like his vocals are very like, they're emotional, they're raw, they're in your face.
They're very brash.
Yeah, they are. They're in your face. Big time. Like very screechy and just, I like screechy vocals. I didn't used to. I really used to hate them. Like famously, I got a bunch of hate on Facebook in the local music scene in like, I think 2015, 2016. I said I didn't like Under Oath scream vocalists. Why didn't they just let the other guy do everything, Aaron Gillespie, And I feel like so many people are like, yo, this kid needs to shut the F up, But I've grown to love, screechy vocals. And even though I love screechy vocals, he's like just a little too like Something about it just does not hit for me. And I love them instrumentally. And that new music video they have, I just saw it. It's like Blair Witch style. It's so cool. Like they have great visuals, they have great branding, they have great music. I cannot get over his vocals. It's crazy to me that they played what, Coachella or was it Lollapalooza?
No, they played Coachella and they had a freaking crowd.
Yeah, that's so like bro, what Knocked Loose? It will be probably bigger than my band will ever be. And that's just insanity to me.
It absolutely is. This is even crazier too, where in May I'm seeing Sleep Token play in Chicago at a venue called the Salt Shed. It's the old Morton Salt Factory turned into a venue. And
That's
they sold
awesome.
out. They sold the venue, of course, in like 5 minutes.
Wow.
Knocked Loose is playing there 1 week later, and they sold out that show in a week. And it's just like, okay, it still takes time to sell that show, but you sold it out how fast for Knocked Loose for that kind of sound? How would you know what? Don't even question it. I'm just enjoying it because
that means cool more. It brings, they say a rising tide
raises all ships.
Raises all ships, and if we're all doing better as a whole, the whole metal and alternative industry, I think that's special, and we will all get bigger because of that. I mean, there's a band up the road here. You may have heard of them. If not for me, I don't know if you've heard of them.
Oh, yeah, I have.
Yeah, they're great, but they're right up the road from us, and kind of their success, I feel like, has started shining more of a spotlight on the music scene here. And we had a huge music scene like 10 years ago, huge. And it kind of has dwindled over the years, but I see it starting to like gain traction again. And I think that's in part due to like some of the bands that are seeing success out of here,
I'll say not even like the smaller, not even like bands like If Not For Me seeing success, but like other bands from the area that are starting to see more success, on a larger scale, on a larger stage and a larger scale. Because of course we know August Burns Red, but seeing but use From Ashes to New, seeing what they're doing. Like, look at how much they're rising.
Have gotten tremendously larger. I think they finally committed to that more Linkin Park style, and that blew them up.
It was they committed. Actually, they kind of committed a little more to the Linkin Park style, especially after they released Panic, because that was the first song I heard. I'm like, is Danny the second coming to Chester? But then what they did with Blackout and everything around there, they add a lot more of this different diversity to it, where they have a little bit more featured from Danny, a little bit less from Matt, but overall, it's still like whenever Matt, like Armageddon comes on and just Matt's vocals are fantastic on it. His rapping is perfect. But when it comes to just like, you're bringing up If Not For Me, I had to smile and laugh because I think I've had them on the podcast by the time we're recording this twice, by the time I release this 3 times, because I already got an episode with them banked up and ready to go for release of their brand new album, of course.
I love that.
But it's something where it's just, you're starting to see, like you said, rising tide raises all ships. When you're starting to see more of these bands start to pick up some steam and you're starting to see just certain areas kind of pick up, then you start to see more of these other bands start to get a little more traction, get a little more attention. 100%. And that just keeps growing the scene as long as we keep supporting it. That's the key. You can't just stop once the train gets going.
100%. And there's another band up the road that's, I don't want to say they've had more success than If Not For Me, but like a different kind of success. 6th Century. Have you had those guys yet?
I have not had them yet.
They're amazing. I love them. We played a bunch of shows. Actually, this weekend we're on a tour with them, like a mini tour, just a 3-day weekender, not a tour. But they have just been crushing the TikTok. They played with Five Finger Death Punch at the York Fair last year, like just crushing it. Different kind of success though, because they're more in that hard rock genre, and it's just crazy. They're right up the road. They're in New York. They're 45 minutes from us. Just knowing that there is bands within even an hour of us just absolutely crushing it. You see them on these national publications. You see so much internet buzz about them. And I think, Pennsylvania, South Central Pennsylvania is just a burgeoning music community. And whether or not they're dissenters, that have been in the scene a long time, that are like, oh, the music scene's not as good as it used to be, like just negative Nancy's. Yeah. I remember back in my day. No, I'm just kidding. Seriously. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, that's right.
People that say the music scene isn't growing around here, but absolutely is. 717 music scene is growing. South Central PA is growing, and I'd love to see that,
Well, I'll say now's the perfect time for my final question for you. It leads right into this. Something I love asking everybody, but if the 717 South Central Pennsylvania scene is growing, can you suggest 3 bands for us that you would love to get more exposure from for that scene? If you want to use If Not For Me and 6th Century as your picks, go for it, because I'd love to put them on there.
Yeah, they're great. If Not For Me, 6th Century. We have a kind of another band that my metalcore drummer is involved with. I'm going to give you 4 bands because I think that I can't give you just 3. Lyndhurst, I love those dudes. Mark is my longtime drummer. He's their drummer. Plays like Travis Barker. Insane. They're pop punk alternative rock band. Awesome dudes. Loved Lyndhurst dudes. And then we have What Lies Below. I don't know if you've heard of them at all.
I've heard of them.
They're amazing, and that's actually my guitar player from La Chiate, Sam Hart. He is the guitar player, and they're one of the guitar players in that band. He's an insane songwriter. Everybody in that band is just crazy talented. They're making insane progressive metalcore. If you like bands like Era, August Burns Red, I would even say like Fit for a King.
Okay.
Less progressive, but that style metalcore. They're awesome. So if you haven't heard What Lies Below, check them out. Lyndhurst, like I said, pop punk alternative rock. 6th Century hard rock from York, and If Not For Me, Mechanicsburg, PA's very own metalcore band. Insane, talented across the board. Check those guys out. Thank you for having me today, Kevin. I've had a blast. I feel like I've rambled a little bit, so thank you for reeling me in as I do that. Thanks for giving Lives Lost a little bit of a spotlight here. I feel like we've been doing really well on the socials lately, and hopefully we continue to grow, and it's just been awesome being on here.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, rising tide raises all ships. You raise the tide for all those ships of all those other bands, and now we're going to do the same for you. So we're going to end this podcast with 3 specific things. So everybody, when it comes to Lives Lost, when it comes to finding that beautiful, beautiful mixture of post-hardcore, some metal sounds there, some hard rock vibes, maybe a little pop punk as well, what you want to do is you're going to want to follow along with them to make sure you know when they're going to be playing near you, know when new music is coming out, and go and listen to it. So here's what you're going to do. Description of the podcast says find Lives Lost online. Links and labels for everything you need to find them online and connect with them and become a fan of them. Listen to their music is going to be there for you. I am doing all the heavy lifting. I am your own personal Google here, not Bing, not Yahoo, Google. So go and click those links, pick your favorite one, and go follow along with Lives Lost right now. Also, number 2, well, Tanis, whenever guest on the podcast, I enjoy the podcast. I tend to make a certain promise as a way to say thank you for being in the podcast. I appreciate your time, and I would like to continue to support the band in the future. So, oh boy, I've made this promise to If Not For Me a number of times. And now you get the same exact thing, because the promise is not if. The promise is when. When I get to see you perform live for the first time, I'm going to do my best Liam Neeson Taken impersonation. As I will look for you. I will pursue you. I will find you. I will say hi. And first round's on me. So
I love that,
because it's happening. I was hoping you're gonna end it with just good luck. That'd been funny as hell.
Good luck.
Holy shit, that was great. Okay, now that was even better than I anticipated. All right, now time for number 3. As we bring this to conclusion, Tess, I cannot end this by saying goodbye because this is a blast. I'd love to have you back on the podcast in the future. Plus, dude, I got to make good on that promise. So this cannot be goodbye. This is, I'll see you later.
See you later, Kevin.
Woo! Well, folks, we interview with Tanis from the band Lives Lost. Now it's time for Kevin's final thought. And we're thinking of talking about, all these stuff with Unclean screams. And we're talking about just like putting them in there tastefully. Here is where I want to go with this once again. Now, we love it when bands do the scream stuff. I mean, there are bands that go out there and just do it incessantly. And I love it. I love the manicness of it. I love the impact of it. And I love this, the story that it tells. But Tanis has a point of it too, where there's a lot of people out there where, they're not the biggest fans of it, or they're just not used to it or don't fully understand it, and that's fine. And when it comes to a band like his, where he wants to have a little bit more of a post-hardcore, a little bit more of a rock flair, more of a hard rock flair to it, you're not going to be able to have a lot of those Unclean scream moments in there. But when you are able to tastefully put one in there at a specific point in time that can hit with nearly any audience it is. Now, again, I love it when people do the unclean screams. Now, I didn't like it back in 2016, 2015, but now I can't get enough of it. I absolutely love it. And again, not everyone's going to go down that same path, go down that same route. But the key is when you're making music is make the music you want, but at the same time, if you're going to do those screams, know why you're putting them in there. Don't just throw them in there just to throw them in there. If you're going to use it for your whole entire sound, then now you know what you're doing. But if you're going to tastefully put them in there, know why you're doing it, know exactly the impact that you're trying to make at that point in time with your song, and what emotion you're trying to convey, because that will make sure that scream hits heavy, hits hard, and is something that is not going to be forgotten. Use Linkin Park as a prime example of it. I think it's perfect. You can also use From Ashes to New, what some of the newer stuff they've been doing, because Daniel throwing some screams in there that really work. We said Chevelle is also a good one in there as well. Just check some of this stuff out, and if you want to get influenced by it, go for it. It's a beautiful thing. When it comes to Lives Lost, though, make sure you go to the description of the podcast below where it says Find Lives Lost Online. Links and labels for everything are going to be down there, so go and follow along with them. Listen to their music, see when shows are coming by you. Also subscribe to the Chord Progression Podcast right down here on YouTube. We are also on Spotify and Podcast, so hit follow on those if you like those instead. Hit like on the episode, whether on Spotify Podcast or on this YouTube video that I'm talking to you on, if you're watching me. And thank you once again, really appreciate it. Let's keep this going. On that note, that's when you guys say for listening to the Chord Progression Podcast. My name is Kevin, and you guys know how we end every single one of those with a big, healthy, and hearty. See ya! Yeah!